you went a bit pedantic grammar police with the Premier's plate because we've seen three different ways of typing Premier's plate, and the examples you listed in the paid section of our newsletter, which you can also read on Patreon, these are illustrious media outlets. These are the top of the pops, the creme de la creme of Aotearoa media. Radio New Zealand, New Zealand Herald, Stuff, One News. They all use different ways of saying Premier's plate from a grammatical perspective. So we don't need to discuss that because who cares? But I do want to get the nitty gritty on Auckland FC. They won the Premier's plate, which means they finished first in the league of the regular season, but they haven't won the A-League just yet.
No, and fair play to stuff.co.nz because they're the only ones that put the apostrophe in the place where I'm pretty sure the apostrophe is supposed to go in Premier's plate. So, credit where it's due. But this is not the championship of the A-League. This is the premiership of the A-League. And it probably means a little bit more in the A-League than the minor premiership in the NRL, just because the culture of football, normally, you're more likely to get like the league system means more. Most competitions just kind of only have the league system. In the A-League, they also have playoffs on top of that. And that's where the championship comes from. But there is still an award for the team that finishes at the top of the standings. And, I'm sure there would be folks out there who would argue that the team who finishes top of the standings at the end of the season is actually the best team, and that's where it should just end. But that's not the competition that we're playing in. This is the A-League where you got to have finals, you got to have playoffs and knockouts and whatever. So, yeah, it's an important trophy. It's a valuable trophy. It's one that absolutely was well earned and deserves big celebrations. But the job is not done. As a lot of those players mentioned, when the players themselves were interviewed after that game, it was a lot of like, we'll enjoy this one, but the big stuff's yet to come. The actual knockout footy and the championship, the main trophy that everyone's playing for, that comes next.
The job is not done, but let's still get on the piss.
Yeah, well, it's like getting on the piss for the weekend. You got to go back to work the next week, but you're still allowed to enjoy your Friday night.
Definitely, and even more so if it's at Mount Smart Stadium, because
absolutely
the scenes at Mount Smart Stadium only reinforce the notion that the Blue Riders, Auckland FC at Mount Smart Stadium, the Aotearoa Warriors at Mount Smart Stadium, far bigger events, far more popular teams, far better entertainment packages than anything rugby union is dishing up right now. And respect. Like, I do need to shout out the Moana Pacifica versus Fiji and Drua game, because that's my favorite rugby union fixture right now. And there's a lot of buzz around what Moana Pacifica are doing at North Harbour Stadium. I like that. I enjoy it. But whether it's the dimensions of North Harbour Stadium and a bunch of other factors, that doesn't come close to what Auckland FC, the Blue Riders, and the Aotearoa Warriors are doing at Mount Smart Stadium. And this is still a storyline, a fact of life that seems to just be brushed aside by a lot of the mainstream media folk in Aotearoa. They just pretend as though Auckland FC and the Warriors who went down to Christchurch, another sellout crowd, another bumper-dumper crowd in Christchurch, because guess what? Christchurch, Canterbury, the South Island, New Zealand loves rugby league. And if there's any Australians listening, I know you love your Western Australian bears, I know you love your Papua New Guineas and all this other shit. New Zealand loves rugby league. And I'm going to stop short of saying, no, you've got to expand to New Zealand, all this stuff, because you just try to deal with the facts as they are. Australia doesn't care about New Zealand, really. So they're just ignoring the fact that New Zealand loves rugby league. But the Warriors in Christchurch once again reinforced the notion that New Zealand loves rugby league. And Auckland FC winning the Premier's Plate halfway to winning the A-League. We know Aotearoa loves football, but I mean, this shows that I'm not willing to put Auckland FC ahead of the Warriors just yet as far as the biggest tickets in New Zealand sport. I think Auckland FC finals footy in the A-League may propel them to the biggest ticket in New Zealand sport at this time. But it reinforced the idea that the Auckland FC, the Warriors, they are the biggest sporting teams in New Zealand. They are the biggest sporting events in New Zealand, and nothing rugby union is doing comes close to that.
No, I think because I'm not sure if they got to throw up the somewhat arbitrary title of sellout for the game on the weekend. It was Sunday, and at Mount Smart it was pretty damp. Pretty damp. Not the best conditions, maybe. So I think that was what prevented it from getting to an absolute maximum. But I'm pretty sure they said there was 24,000 people there. Didn't look it, but that's because, as I say, it was raining. So I think a lot of people were watching from shelter where they could. But that's a massive crowd. And it was a massive crowd that turned up knowing that Auckland FC had already clinched the minor premiership thingamajig the night before, because Melbourne City only drew their game. So that meant that no matter what Auckland City did, they were going to get to lift the trophy at the end of it. But I'm sure a lot of people bought their tickets before that, knowing that regardless of what Melbourne City did, if Auckland FC won, then sweet as that's the trophy right then and there anyway. So it was always going to be a celebratory mood, and they got a massive crowd. And I'm pretty sure I read that takes them up to a season average of 18,000, which is absolutely enormous. Like that's not the peak. That's the average of what they got across their home games, and they will have at least one playoff game. Probably, well, I mean, two if they get through their elimination semi. It'll be like the Phoenix. This is what the Phoenix did last season, where they finished second. Top two go straight through to the elimination finals. So like 3 to 6 have their playoffs in the first round. Top two get a bye, and then it's home and away. So there's a guaranteed one home game and one away game for Auckland FC. If they progress through that, they will host the grand final because they'll be the top seed. So potentially we might get 2 more games at Mount Smart, which would be knockout games. One of them could be a grand final if they get that second one. I mean, those are guaranteed sellouts. It's absolutely guaranteed. There's no doubt about it. Those games will sell out.
But again, what does a sellout actually mean? Because there's all these sellouts, but like you can have a sellout that has a different crowd total figure than a different sellout. Like if you've got 5 events that are sold out, the crowd numbers for each of those events can be different at the same venue. I'm on ozstadiums.com, AU Stadium, sorry. My best resource for crowd figures. You mentioned the Auckland FC average. The average at Mount Smart Stadium this year is 19,000 for all events at Mount Smart Stadium this year. The 2 biggest crowds at Mount Smart Stadium this year, 2025, Auckland FC versus Wellington Phoenix, 27,000. Auckland FC versus Perth, 24,000. So Auckland FC has the 2 biggest crowds at Mount Smart Stadium this year ahead of the Warriors.
Is that the Perth game? Is that the one from the weekend?
Yes.
Damn. Second biggest crowd of the season. I know they opened up extra seating for the Phoenix derby, which is why they went above that 24-25 mark. But yeah, that's amazing. And I'm sure they'll try to be finding whatever extra space they can get for the other one.
Well, let me finish. So the Warriors, though, their 3 crowds this year, you go Sea Eagles, 21,000, Roosters, 23,000, Broncos, 22,000. Whereas Auckland FC, they drop down to 14,000, 16,000, and so on. So they do. So Auckland FC. Now, obviously, we don't need to well, Super Rugby doesn't have public crowd information to the same extent, but we can assume Super Rugby, you're probably dealing in averages of 10,000, maybe 15,000 on a good day. So all of these are far bigger than Super Rugby. But Auckland FC, they've got the biggest crowds at Mount Smart Stadium, whereas the Warriors, they're holding steady. So if I was to guess, you said the Auckland FC average was 18,000 and whatever. I reckon, well, what we got? 3 crowds, 21, 22, 23,000, all in the early 200, 300 mark. I'd say an average, let's be generous, 21,500 for an average of the Warriors. So that shows a slight difference there, but respect to Auckland FC, they've had the biggest crowds. But then if we go all time, this is where I'm getting to what you're saying. Tonga versus England. Now, again, this goes back to another idea of Tonga, their home ground, being Mount Smart Stadium, because the Rugby League World Cup semi-final in 2017, they had 30,000. So you can get 30,000 people into Mount Smart Stadium. 2007 NRL Finals, Warriors versus Eels, they had 28,700. And then the next biggest crowds at Mount Smart Stadium, according to austadiums.com, the Derby, where it was 27,000, then another Derby in late in 2024 when it was 26,000. And then that Warriors versus Knights finals game from 2023, that was 26,000. So, yes, there are all sorts of nooks and crannies where you can fit people into Mount Smart Stadium. There's people on the stairwells, there's people on the banks, there's people, I mean, they might as well be counting the people who are in the dunny, doing the number 2s to get to 30,000. And I think Auckland FC finals footy in the A-League, I think they might be giving 30,000 people a nudge. But I am thinking, well, they've already passed that Warriors versus Knights semi-final game from 2023 because they hit 27,000. So if they've already hit 27,000 for a regular season derby game, I think they can hit 30,000. So they might just need a couple of Tongans to show up and support Auckland FC to get that 30,000 mark.
Yeah, and some good weather between now and then so they can fit more people on the bank and it not just turn into a slippery slide, which, you know, is probably at risk of happening on the weekend. We'll see how that goes, but they're gonna, yeah, it's gonna be jam packed one way or another. Like the idea of how, because you know the first derby that they hosted was the one Auckland FC against Wellington. That was the one where they conveniently had an official attendance of one person more than what the Wellington versus Auckland derby had been. And then they did it up to an extra couple thousand people for the second derby that they hosted. That shows you how much you can juice those stats for sellouts and crowd figures and whatever. So when we say there's going to be a sellout for these finals games, or hopefully, certainly for the one finals game, hopefully they get a second finals game on top of that, we mean like an actual sellout. We don't mean like a bunch the numbers together and count some. We mean like whatever is available is being sold. People are buying those tickets.
I've never said sellout. You keep saying sellout.
Yeah, true. Well, okay, we'll forget.
Like sellout, it means absolutely nothing to me. I'm talking about facts and figures, and I think Auckland FC finals footy, they can hit 30,000. Sellout, who knows? Because they might get 35,000, and then you're like, well, what are the other sellouts? If you can get 35,000 people there, you know, nothing else is a sellout, really.
They'd have to like put the extra 5,000 people on a blimp flying over the top or something, I think, to make that work. I don't know. Can you seat people on top of the stadium, like chuck them on the roof? Whatever they can, whatever's safe and whatever they can get away with, I'm sure they'll try, because you know, that's free money if you can.
They did have the inflatable slide on the bank for the game against Perth, and I was like, there's some health and safety issues there if it's pissing down with rain and you're just zooming down the slip and slide. The actual slip and slide, not the grass bank, but an actual slip and slide. You might need some pillows down the bottom. I reckon if you pack out like the Lily World area I think you can get 35,000 people there. We'll see. That's ambitious because there's only been, apparently, according to austadiums.com, there's only been one sporting event at Mount Smart Stadium that has had 30,000 people, and it's the Dockers. It's Tonga versus England. Shout out to any Poms that were there as well, but I think a lot of that crowd was Tongan. Just sticking with Auckland FC for a jiffy here, because I am fired up about their season, and I do have thoughts, but they have one more game away to Western United before elimination finals. How are you processing just the fact that they've won it, but they still haven't, like, because if Liverpool win the Premier League, they've won the Premier League, so the next games don't matter. The next games are just purely a celebration, and to be honest, Liverpool, they're probably taking the piss. Their opponents are probably taking the piss because they might already be relegated, so you can have a bit of fun. Auckland FC won the Premier's Plate. They have one more regular season game to play against Western United, who are third. And then finals footy starts. So how are you just processing the winning the Premier's Plate, game to play, then finals footy, and how they might manage the situation, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I wondered about this while the game was happening. It's like, especially afterwards too, when you're watching the celebrations and like on the video, you can see over my shoulder, but Finn McKinley's bright orange hair poking up in the background, and Adama Koulibaly with the dreads there. So like I was wondering what Lewis Toomey with his jacket too. I was wondering if we might see some of those guys. Like, is this maybe an opportunity to rotate a little bit, chuck some of the youngsters out there for a bit of experience, just seeing as the game doesn't really mean that much else? And then I thought, probably not, because they're going to have a bye the week after anyway. So I don't think you need to rest your players. If you do, then anyone who gets rested is going to be missing 2 weeks of action before having to step back up for elimination. Two-legged elimination semi-final. That might not be the ideal sort of level of preparation that you want. So maybe someone like Felipe Gallegos, who missed this game with injury, went off injured just before halftime in the previous week, so he didn't play this game. Maybe someone like that will enjoy the extra week off to recuperate. But I don't think we'll see a whole lot of don't think that we'll see a whole lot of rotation. I think we'll probably see, like, from what I gather of Steve Corica, I think he's not a guy who cuts a whole lot of corners anyway. So I expect he'll want to keep standards high and tell them, like, look, this is the same as any other game. Go out there and try to win. And then also, I think what probably tips it over the line there in terms of how competitive they will expect to be is, as you point there, Western United are a team they might have to face in that elimination final. So there is an element to maybe you don't want to keep a trick up your sleeve or two, but I don't think that's really how they play. They're not a team that surprises you tactically, Auckland. They're just a team that goes and executes their own game plan as well as they possibly can and tries to, they just beat teams that way. So I think I don't know. I think you need to maybe make a statement and try to beat a potential finals opponent, and at least keep your keep your standards high and try to get that victory, same as any other game. I don't think we'll see a lot of rotation. I don't think we'll see them take the foot off the gas or anything like that. I think if it were a Premier League situation like say Liverpool are in now, that's a different story. But knowing that they've got finals to prepare for, I think we'll probably see them treat this game the same way as they treated the Perth game and treated the everything else before that.
Auckland FC did win the Premier's Place. Excuse me, I was about to say the A-League. Just got to rectify that each time. In their first season. Auckland FC reserves are highly unlikely to win the Northern League in their first season because they are second to last. And that's all right. The Black Caps, they won the World Test Championship in its first season, in its first edition. And as we know, as we will theme of our cricket content, as we will discuss as we will chat about later on in the podcast when we have a little net session. Theme of our cricket coverage is how everyone just loves to complain about cricket, but the World Test Championship is a fantastic competition. It is perfect. There are no holes in it. There's no flaws. It's the most pristine cricketing competition ever because New Zealand won. So I'm not going to highlight anything negative about the World Test Championship if New Zealand won the first ever World Test Championship. Let's be serious here. So we got Auckland FC, first season in the A-League, win the Premier's Plate. Hopefully going to win the A-League. We got the Black Caps, first ever World Test Championship, they win it. Now, there is a little difference because it was the first World Test Championship, whereas Auckland FC, it's their first season in the A-League, and the New Zealand Warriors, who share the Mount Smart Temple with Auckland FC, in their first season of under-17 Harold Matthews Cup Rugby League, they won that competition last year. Guess what the Warriors Harold Matthews Cup team is up to this year? They're back in the grand final. So are there any other things on your mind, like the first time a team has been in the competition, maybe first Auckland Tuatara entry, they won something?
Indian Panthers.
Yep, they're not winning much. Let me just double check how the Indian Panthers are tracking. They're 0-9. Shout out to the Nelson Giants. They won a game, so they are now 1-8. Indian Panthers, they are not doing what Auckland FC did. They are not doing what the Aotearoa Warriors under-17 team did in winning the competitions in their first seasons. The Indian Panthers are now 0-9. So it's not them.
I can't think of any off the top of my head that have happened, but I am thinking of one that might happen, because I think the A-League Women's is probably more vulnerable as a competition in terms of a new team being able to come in and be successful straight away than the A-League Men's. I certainly didn't predict Auckland FC to be this good. Well, no one did, but it's one of those things. That's one of the narratives that you keep hearing. Narratives is slightly better than content. I'm not sure what a better word for either of them is, though.
We'll get into mindfulness, but I have been aware of some goofy stuff happening. Like, you just drive around, you see, you just see some weird shit on the sidewalks these days. But I did take note of that in my mindfulness yesterday, just being aware of some crazy shit happening around me. And we've started the podcast. We've already used content and narrative, so we're just part of the goofy storm surrounding us. But as you were,
yeah, you gotta live in the world as well. You try to improve the world, but you still got to live in it at the same time. It's a journey. But one of the storylines is slightly better. I don't know, that you hear a lot about this Auckland thing. Well, no one thought they would do this. Like, yeah, no shit. Like, first season, of course you're not going to predict that, but they've done it. It's an amazing. It's an amazing run they've been on, but it's not something that happened by accident, because they did give themselves the best opportunity. Like, they picked a coach who's won the A-League before. They picked a squad that had a really good balance of, strong domestic local youngsters, but they're not relying on those guys. They've got a bunch of, capped all whites who are maybe on the fringe of national team selections, and therefore, or they're coming back from situations overseas where maybe things had fizzled out a little bit, and they had a point to prove. Like, they signed players like Logan Rogerson, Max Mata, guys like this, seem like Nando Pinecker even seemed like they all fit into this. Alex Paulson's slightly different, because I don't think he had a point to prove. He was maybe a point being made by Auckland FC rather than anything on his personal thing. But he hasn't taken a step backwards or anything like that this season. He's been as good this year as he was last year. They signed a few Aussie veterans, like I think Dan Hall's been the most reliable of them. But even someone like Scott Galloway, who's hardly played, you got to imagine having a presence like that, someone who's played over 200 times in the A-League, is even if he's not playing, he's still a valuable person to have in your squad, like Tommy
I
Smith, you know?
I literally have no idea who Scott Galloway is.
Exactly. He actually played for the Phoenix for a couple of seasons earlier in his career, but he played for Melbourne City for a lot. And, you know, he's been a highly successful A-League player in his time. And like one of their assistant coaches is Danny Hay, who used to coach the All Whites. Like they got the best possible guys they could get within reason. Terry McFlynn as well as I guess he's director of football, whatever his title is, like the man who makes those decisions on a footballing side. Like he's been around not only working with Steve Corica, but just working specifically in the A-League as a player in the A-League, and then as a sort of, you know, as a suit, as a front office man, as they might say in one of those other countries that gets a lot of sporting coverage. Like they did everything they could to build a team that would be as successful as possible. That it's worked to the best case scenario up to this point of the season. I mean, you can't predict that, but at least they gave themselves the best opportunity of that. Well, they're going to follow the same playbook when they put their women's team together, supposing that they're allowed to have a women's team, because there seems to be a little bit of a hold up there on the league side. At first, it was presented like maybe this is Auckland FC getting cold feet on that, but they've consistently, whenever asked, have said, no, we want a women's team, we want a men's team, we want to get an academy system, like we want to do all that stuff, we want to represent the whole community, blah, blah, blah. It sounds like it's the A-League who's getting held up over paperwork or whatever. I don't know what the deal is, but we're waiting for confirmation of their women's team. But supposing they get that, which I think they should, they're going to use the same playbook to put that squad together. And if it works so well in the men's A-League, I don't think there's any reason to, certainly right now, if someone can confirm to me that Auckland FC will have a women's team next season, I will say I can't guarantee anything. But my strong prediction would be they're going to at least make the finals. The Wellington Phoenix have missed the finals in 4 straight seasons. But the Auckland FC will make the finals in their first season. Will they win it? I don't know. We don't know if they're going to win the A-League men's yet. But I can see a similar thing happening there as well with that team. Same as what we've had in the A-League men's.
That smells like a good cue to explore some mindfulness, because let's just be present. Like there's no actual Blue Riders women's team just yet. Like we can't celebrate the Blue Rider woman winning their first season in the A-League women's if they don't exist just yet. So we'll just chill on that and come back to the present moment where like these things all like recently as well, because obviously we're not really historians, like to be honest, too many Aotearoa vitamins for the old memory banks to have that history front and center. The Black Caps won the World Test Championship, the first World Test Championship after the pandemic. The Warriors Harold Matthews Cup team, this is their second season, so they won it last year, back in the grand final this year. Auckland FC 2025 winning their first season in the A-League. Like these are all last 4 or 5 years, which to me shows how awesome the sporting diversity of Aotearoa is right now. And that's why we love to cover such sports. You got some mindfulness there for us.
I do. And I think this might be a first for the mindfulness, is I've picked one that is in a different language. And I will translate just to be clear. But speaking Italian here for a second, which means I got to get my hands going. I got to start throwing the fingers around. Tutto passa. Tutto passa. It means everything passes. And that's probably a timely one for Auckland FC to consider it as well. And also, for Phoenix fans who are not so happy watching this, the good times, they pass. They won't last forever. So enjoy them while they're there. Likewise, though, the bad times, they don't linger as well. They come and go just as much. And when I look out the window and see that it's raining for like the 20th day in a row, tutto passa. That'll pass too eventually. One day the sun will shine again.
I mean, it's sun shining here in Okarangi. But and it goes for your positive thoughts, your negative thoughts, just be aware of them, let them pass. You don't need to be a prisoner to your own thoughts, because they do pass. Like you can have some horrible thoughts, some sad thoughts, some down and out thoughts, some anxious thoughts, but then they pass. and you're still there. You're still doing your best. You're still having a crack. What is your saddest Wellington Phoenix thought right now?
I mean, I would have liked to see Marco Rojas get the comeback season. You know, he's a player I've always really enjoyed watching. And if he had that comeback season, and if it had worked out, and if he had been, you know, a star player for the Phoenix the same way Costa Barbarouses has been a star player for the Phoenix, then he might well have been getting that all-whites resurgence, same as Costa Barbarouses has had too, which in this case might have meant him getting to go to a World Cup. So that didn't happen. I think he is a fairly mindful bloke himself, so I think he understands that tudo passa. I don't know that he's clinging too much. I suspect that might be leaning him towards the retirement, but whatever happens, like he, you know, he gave it a nudge. He kept getting injured. It didn't work. But that is one that I feel a little bit of regret about that, how that worked out, because I don't think that was a bad signing. Like, everyone loved it when Marco Rojas signed, and now I keep seeing it being presented. Well, this is just another example of Chiefy's failures this season. It's not. Signed a experienced, like, quality A-League player, and he just had a couple injuries and maybe wasn't quite there mentally to where he had been in the past. Wasn't sure if he wanted to keep, you know, battling through all these injuries when you start to get into that situation. It's a shame. It didn't work out. It had good intentions. Everyone had good intentions. I would have liked to see Marco Rojas getting the resurgence Costa Barbarouses is having, but, you know, so it goes.
I mean, you're doing pretty well if your saddest Wellington Phoenix thought is, what a bummer for Marco Rojas.
Well, you know, you gotta stay present and not dwell on. So, I mean, if he had done well, though, like, that changes the course of their season, because he was a guy they were hoping to be able to build their attack around. So who knows what kind of different outcome they would have had as a team. Instead, I don't know if you watched them on the weekend, but it's not a good watch at the moment. There's no creativity going on there. And it's not for lack of trying. It's just for lack of, they don't have players who can do that stuff. And Rojas was one who might have, but didn't happen.
Auckland FC were playing Perth Glory, who have big man Bombadil Ollie Sale between the pipes in goal. And respect to Ollie Sale, first half especially, some great saves. And I can see why Ollie Sale is a professional goalkeeper, because he does stop the ball. Like, that's his strength, I think, is his commanding presence in goal and his ability as a shot stopper, although that did take a dent with the goal that Marley Francois scored, which went straight past Ollie Sale. Like, those situations in the first half, Ollie Sale was kind of commanding the box, punching it away, getting the blokes out of the way with his, you know, oomph. And then in the second half, he didn't do that, and Auckland FC scored with what's it called? The old Olympico?
The Olympico, that's the one.
Which, like, as always, just makes it sound way cooler than it actually is. There was, I actually, like, so when I think I was flicking around, I think there was a rugby league game on or something, so I was flicking around, but anytime Auckland FC hit a shot that went out for a goal kick, I didn't change the channel. I couldn't change the channel because I had to watch Ollie Sale do a goal kick. And there were a couple where credit, you know, fair enough to Ollie Sale, he kicked the ball into a competitive battle. And Nando Panic is just going to win that competitive battle every time. So that wasn't Ollie Sale's fault. I was interested, though, to see Ollie Sale blast one over the right-hand side touchline and then blast some more over the left-hand side touchline. I was like, this is, if he's not just kicking it to the opposition, he's kicking it out. And I was like, this makes me feel good about my football takes, because I was aware of Ollie Sale kicking the ball to the opposition when he was playing for the Wellington Phoenix, and still the case. So it's like one of those situations where you hit a shot, you know, weekend footballers will enjoy this as well. Like if you hit a shot and then whatever you do to get a goal kick, you got to be really tapped in with what the goalkeeper is capable of. Is the goalkeeper going to kick the ball back to you? If so, you got to be switched on because you're getting the ball right back. Let alone, like, is the goalkeeper a capable short passer? If not, then you can set up accordingly. You just got to know what you're dealing with. And I mean, Ollie Sale, Kiwi, All Whites goalie, love him from the Aotearoa perspective, but from a anti-Perth Glory perspective, every goal kick is an opportunity, or the opportunity for you to get the ball back just goes through the roof because he's either kicking it out, he's kicking it to you, or it's just like 2 meters off and you're winning the contest because that goal kick's a little bit off and he doesn't play short. Alex Paulson, as we said last week, I think it was when we checked in with the stats. Let me see what I can do as far as the stats are a bit harder to find. Team rankings? There we go. Sorry, because we did say that Alex Paulson was first for long passing, which I assume is still the case. And obviously, it's the A-League, so it's very difficult to find stats and all the relevant information that I should have had before. Let's go completed long passes. Ollie Sale now first. So what do I know? He's first. 363, Alex Paulson 360. But Alex Paulson, every long passes, well, Sale's got the most completed, so he's obviously accurate, and I obviously don't know what I'm talking about. But Alex Paulson plays long and he plays short. I'm not sure if kicking it out on the full, how that ranks in your completed long passes, though, because is it a long pass if it just goes straight out? It's a touch finder, so Ollie Sale might be first for the old touch
finder. It's a defensive clearance from the goalkeeper.
Yeah, it's a defensive clearance. But Paulson, on the other hand, you can trust that he's going to make the right decision playing short. You can trust that he's going to make an accurate long pass, and obviously he's a fantastic goalkeeper as well. So I do want to update some of those observations that I've had. Something else I was aware of, and you've got some of the lads behind you. I had this thought about Francis de Vries. And it all kind of tied in with the discussion around the draws. And as we know, Auckland FC had a few draws and they were dropping points every week. But then they went on to win the Premier's Plate because that's what good teams do. I kind of feel like maybe that phase of the season, and you hear about this with some like NRL teams and other professional sports teams and leagues, where the training intensity is managed. So in some sections of the season, the training intensity decreases. Some sections of the season, the training intensity increases. And that can impact your performance on the weekend. Because I was like watching Franny de Vries, and Jake Brimmer behind you just stands out with this in mind. These dudes have dropped some kgs in the season. Like, to be honest, Jake Brimmer right there looks like he's having a few issues. He looks like he's having a few issues and he's lost a few kgs. Franny de Vries, he also looks like he's having a few issues. But these dudes are just training hard, I think. And I think that's what Steve Corica was doing over that period, was he might have been training them harder, which then meant they didn't have enough zip in the game, but it was preparing them for finals footy. Because I did note, as I was watching the game, like the team just looks fitter. Straight up, they look skinnier. They look fitter. They look like they have been training really hard compared to earlier in the season, which is off the preseason. So you should be super fit, super, not skinny, but super strong and prepared for the season. But it does look like they have been training really hard throughout the season to ramp up for the finals push, where you're playing high intensity soccer football every week, 3 weeks in a row, 2 weeks in a row, let alone all the bells and whistles that come with it that can be quite But you got to absorb a lot of energy externally, internally through the finals campaign. So I'm not sure what you think about that, but I do like Francis de Vries stood out as I was watching the game. Like he looks like he's dropped a few kgs, and even Jake Brimmer behind you. Like I can't get it out of my head now. He just looks like we've got to check in with Jake Brimmer. Is he all good? Even though he's playing awesome footy, I'm not sure if he's all good.
Yeah, I mean, well, Jake Brimmer did say afterwards, like he was actually in a little bit, he was borderline tearing up while he was saying this afterwards about sort of like some of the sacrifices he's had to make this season. I think he mentioned his father's been sick, but specifically as well, his family stayed, like his kids and wife have stayed in, I assume, Melbourne, because that's where he was playing before. So he's been kind of living away from them. So maybe that's like, well, first of all, that's going to be that is going to be a strain on you emotionally.
Apologies to Jake Brimmer. Like, I'm
Well,
taking the piss.
no, I mean what I was going to say is like it also means he's probably just living by himself, hitting the gym every day. He's got nothing else to do. Like the family's away, so you get your FaceTime in. You might get a bye week here or there where you're able to duck back over, and maybe they'll come and visit you for a bit. But also, he's going to have a lot of free time to just work out as hard as he can. So maybe there's some of that. I think the guy who fits that bill the most is Nando Paniker, who's always been quite I won't say chunky, but for a centre back, he's a solid build, and he is not the one who like he's not going to score a goal, rip his shirt off, and then like bulge in six pack or whatever, like some of the forwards normally do. But I think he's looked more nimble on his feet than I've ever seen him before. And I think this is like I've said a few times with Pinecker, I think this is a process that began while he was still playing in Ireland. But I do also think he's needed the sort of ramp up and intensity move into Auckland and what that's meant to continue that on so that he didn't sort of stagnate, to continue that development. So I think he might be the best example of that. And yeah, I've thought that from the start, that they feel like a fitter team than their opponents. And the best example of like the best proof of that is this sort of reputation they built very early on, which I don't know that we've actually seen a lot of in the last couple of months, but certainly at the start of the season, it was happening almost every week, is they kept scoring goals late in halves. So when the other team tires, they pounce because they're fitter, because they've got more endurance, because they can keep going. But I think also maybe what's like the fitness, people think of fitness in like a speed and being able to like run for longer kind of way. They've got that, but I also, and what helps with that too, frankly, is having a deep squad. So having the ability to bring on substitutes who are good and can like either keep up the pace of what your starters set or raise it, frankly, when you're in your short bursts as well. Like they've got subs who can do that. That helps. That certainly is important for fitness, is to being able to share the load. But I also think in that same way, they seem stronger than every team they play against as well. Like it's not just that they can run for longer, it's also they're harder in the tackles. We were talking about this last week, how I think they win the most interceptions in the league. They win the most tackles in the league. They also give away the most fouls. So you're giving away the most fouls and winning the most tackles and winning the most interceptions. Like the interception, you get to the ball before the other guy gets to the ball. There's no challenge. Tackles, you get to the ball at the same time as the other guy. There's a challenge. And the fouls, you get to the ball after the other guy. There's a challenge, but you're too late and you can see the foul. But either way, in all three of those examples, they also make the most defensive clearances, by the way. So there's another version of the same thing. In all of those examples, they're the team that they're a combative team that force you to, you don't get things easy against Auckland FC. They will shut you down nice and quickly. And that is part of that as well, because that's exhausting. Like that's hard to keep doing that over and over and over for 90 minutes, but they do. And that's another example, I think, of their superior fitness. And they did have a long preseason, and the focus of a long preseason as a new team is like, well, obviously you got to have as long a preseason as possible, as many games as possible, because you're trying to build this thing from scratch. You need all these players playing together to build combinations. But of course, that is also going to have, let's say the follow-on effect, but it's intentional. They're clearly trying to add this as well. They're trying to build the combinations, and they're trying to get this team as fit as possible. And that certainly seems to fit with how Steve Corica wants them to play. So it's obviously a thing that it's not just a convenient thing where if you can be a little bit fitter, you will get some advantages from it. I think it's a very deliberate, specific thing of no, we want to be the fittest team so that we can play this way. And they are, and they have done, and they probably will show that off some more in the finals, because it is the end of the season. Everyone is exhausted. Everyone is carrying injuries. It's the same thing as that, like being able to pounce late in halves. Well, now they get the season version of that, of being able to pounce late in the season, where your fitness is gonna shine through if you are that team who has that advantage.
BRB, Blue Rider Bullies. That's what they are.
Yeah.
All season, they've just bullied their opposition, and your stats reflect that. Do
you want another stat, by the way? Ollie Sale in that game against Auckland FC completed 4 out of 26 long passes. It's 15%. So there were lots of long passes, but they weren't very accurate. Although, to be fair, Alex Paulson was also like 2 of 11. So I think maybe the midfield was just being crowded out a bit, and maybe not let's say a very competitive area of the pitch, even though it didn't feel that way in the first half where Auckland were just running over them.
Alex Paulson he wasn't a touch finder on both sidelines though,
No.
That's the thing that stood out for me with Ollie Sale, and it's like it's a bit of the old Willow Rourke spray can approach, like the painters. The Willow Rourke, to me, he's a great painter. I love Willow Rourke, the painter. Ollie Sale, the painter, less so. I got 2 other things. I'm curious how the first 11 for Auckland FC looks as we progress into finals footy, because I do there's 2 things I like from the game on the weekend, and that is the Brimmer Verstrada combo in the midfield, and then Marley Francois. We'll get to Marley Francois in a jiffy, but the Brimmer Verstrada combo is interesting because I think wasn't too familiar with Brimmer before the season, but I love him now, and I mean he's on the field, he's part of he's first 11 for me. Whereas, mad respect to Galloway, I still don't know who he is.
Galloway hasn't played. He hasn't even been in a squad since the 0-0 draw with Melbourne victory. So that was like less than halfway through. He has not been in a squad for the second half of the season. So you don't need to know who he is.
But is that like happy to be there, or is he like getting shafted?
I don't know. I thought he'd be starting ahead of Francis de Vries at the start of the season, but same as everyone. Like, I wasn't. It's not that I wasn't familiar with Francis de Vries's game. It's that I wasn't familiar with his recovery from ACL, and I was too familiar with his game while he was playing for Eastern Suburbs on the way back up. So he got fitter, and he got faster, and he got stronger sooner than I anticipated. So again, there's your Auckland FC off-season regimen coming through.
There was something that one last note on that. Tommy Smith went an eye. Like, start of the season, he's too slow. He looks like he's a geriatric.
Yeah.
Well, he's doing the job, and he's doing the job for the best team in the A-League. And there wasn't, I didn't see a notable dip. Like, yes, the Dan Hall, Nando Pinaka combo, that's fantastic. The best backline is De Vries, Pinaka, Hall, Sakai. Awesome back four. To be honest, that's one of the best back fours that I've ever seen play football. Yeah, like this is a tangent, but just like going back to the youngin days when it was like Maldini and Nesta and those type of characters, and you're like, holy shit, I know nothing about football, but these dudes are just mad. The Auckland FC backline, like that backline cannot be understated, underestimated. It needs to be celebrated. But when Tommy Smith-Whittenai comes in, yes, there's a drop-off because he's not Sakai, he's not Dan Hall, which was the swap most of the season. But Auckland FC weren't like terrible with Tommy Smith in the backline. And that is because Tommy Smithwood and I, he's fit, he's healthy, he's vibrant, he's energetic. He's doing his job as a squad member in that team. And I'm not sure the player you mentioned as being like a poster boy for their fitness.
Who did I mention?
The
Oh, Nando
Vries,
Peinecker.
Nando Peinecker. I think it's Tommy Smithwood and I, because that dude, he's an older player, but he looked fit, he looked healthy, and it's not just like I'm making fun of these dudes like tough times. So you lose a few kgs, you look a bit skinny. They don't look depressed in that way, obviously, because they're highly energetic footballers. But they all look fresh and vibrant and lively, healthy. They all look healthy and strong, fit and firing. None of them to the extent of Tommy Smithwood and I, he's probably, is he the oldest player in the squad?
Yeah, he should be.
So yeah,
he's 2 weeks older than Hiroki Sakai.
there you go.
There you
Sakai,
go.
he's got the Japanese vitamins, so he's
I mean,
he could play till he's 50. But I mean, Tommy Smithwood and I, he's getting that juice. It must be, they must have some secret sauce there at Auckland FC. But I do think, Tommy Smith, he's been a very good squad member, and no one sums up their fitness, their health vibe, their fresh nature more so than Tommy Smithwood and I. But go back to Jake Brimmer. As I learned about him, as I saw him early in the season, I was like, this dude, okay, he's kind of just in that role behind he's a bit of a Cam Howison. I can see that seems to be the role that he played earlier in the season, but also the role he played at other clubs and had success in that role at other clubs.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
before coming to Auckland FC. But okay, he might be a bit older now, so as you do get older, you can drop back in the midfield. That combo with him and Verstrada, where Verstrada's the physical player, holds the ball, crisp with his passing, but then you got a bit of creativity with Brimmer. You got a more attacking mindset with Brimmer, someone who can thread passes, can shift the ball wide quickly and efficiently. I mean, like, I'm not sure how you're viewing your first 11, and if Brimmer, he was always in your first 11, right? Like your best Auckland FC team. I just don't know if he was in that role beside Verstrada.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I didn't have him in the one that I've been in the 11 that I've been talking about in the last few weeks, which hasn't actually ever played together because I had Gallegos and Verstrada there. But Brimmer Brimmer feels like he's been rotated in and out a lot. He was first 11 at the start of the season in that sort of, the 10 roll in off the striker, but that wasn't a particularly efficient attacking version of Auckland FC, and they've got better since Mai dropped back slightly and Mata moved up front, or when Mai's been partnered with someone else up front sometimes as well, but as sort of like two strikers, Jesse Randall had a game or two doing that. But Brimmer's best performances, I think, have all come when he has played in that deeper role, and he's a better version of Cam Howison in that way, where like he's someone who wants to get a lot of touches. He's going to bounce the ball around. He can thread the ball. He's got a a good accurate long pass. He can slide one through as well. He's good from set pieces. So there's a lot that he offers, and he's bouncy. Like he's a really bouncy player in that midfield, which I think maybe with Gallegos and Verstrada, you don't get as much. You maybe don't get as much bounce. It's a bit more they just kind of stomp around. Gallegos does glide a bit. So there's some of that, but maybe that gives you a better sort of in position. That gives you a bit, just a little bit more if you have someone like Brimmer being able to drift around, bounce between little areas, move the ball around, combine and like create little overloads here, there, and pass out of smaller spaces. Like I think there's a lot to that. So I think Verstrada has won back his first 11 spot over the last month. And Gallegos' injury is an interestingly timed one because it has given both Howison and Brimmer opportunities to play in that role. And I think Brimmer is the guy. Like, I think they gave Howison some minutes because he deserves some minutes, but Brimmer's the one leading into the playoffs where if Gallegos isn't ready to go, it'll be him. But even if Gallegos is ready to go, it might still be Brimmer. And if that's the case, either way, whoever isn't picked is going to be on the bench, able to come on for the other guy after 60 minutes and just ramp up that intensity some more in a finals game. So I don't think there's a wrong answer to that one.
And that's the squad concept that is a big factor with the Warriors. Because when you're talking about Galloway, I was like, is it like a Tanner Boyd type of situation where you come to the Warriors and yes, you'd be love to play NRL every week, but you're so happy at the club. You're so involved as far as development, learning, having fun, being part of just a good culture. All the dudes in the Warriors system just love to be there. And I think that's what we're seeing with Auckland FC. All the guys in the squad, they love to be a part of Auckland FC. So then the hit of not playing first 11 football isn't so heavy because you're like, yeah, I'm seeing my boys play. Yeah, I'm involved in a very successful organization and it's not such a big issue. Slide into Marley Francois, and I wouldn't be opposed to naming a child Marley Zen Mata. That's a combination of Auckland FC first, middle, and last names. You could go with Marley Zen Mai. Like, these are some quirky names, but I did want to get that Aotearoa flavor in with Mata. So it's a shout out to anyone who does have a child called Marley Zen Mata, because that would be a fantastic name. But Marley Francois playing left wing, I saw him starting that game against Perth, and I was like, I'm just going to watch him. I'm just going to watch his involvements, because that position is a role we've talked about all season, with different guys coming in and out of that role, that position. And then Marley Francois just started to get game time. And it's like, I don't know, like, we're from Aotearoa, we'd probably just prefer, Liam Gilliam was doing a good job. He's from Aotearoa. Why isn't he there? Oh, Louis Toomey's been getting a few opportunities. Like, surely you can just get him involved. Like, Cam Howison doesn't
Randall as well.
Jesse Randall. Cam Howison doesn't play left wing, but he's from Aotearoa. Like, surely you can just switch your formation for more Aotearoa flavor. Like, what's this new Aussie guy doing in the team? But Marley Francois, he's just to me, he's just classy. Like, he does the same defensive work as Rogerson. He's not that different from Rogerson, to be honest. They both do the defensive work. And of course, there's Moreno as well. So, like, why is Marley Francois being selected ahead of Moreno? These are things I was trying to figure out as I was watching Marley Francois. And he's got the defensive stuff sorted. He's a good dribbler. He's two-footed. Like, I saw him play a left-footed cross in. But I think he is a dominant right footer off of the top of my head.
Yeah, you can tell he is, because he's always cutting inside from the left wing. He always wants to get onto that right foot.
But he does have a left foot.
But he does, yeah. And he's a good dribbler. So if you're a good dribbler, you can always use both feet, because you have to be able to show both directions if you're going to be good. Otherwise, all you're going to get is defender's just going to step through the challenge if he knows what you're doing.
So I'm pretty confident now. Like, he's better than Gillian. He's better than Randall. He's obviously better than Toomey. And I think it's having Moreno come off the bench and being able to start Marley Francois. And he is good enough to do the job as a starter and set the foundations. And then you've got Moreno. Moreno has a bit more... Well, I use class to describe Francois, but like Moreno, he's just got a bit more juice. Like, he seems like a bit more ruthless. He's going to bang in the long shots and they're going to be on target, that type of thing. He's going to score the goals. To me, he's a better finisher than Francois, is maybe the best way of saying it.
By far, yeah. I think the finishing is the weakness of Francois' game.
That's true, but I was meaning finisher as far as the game context goes. But it's applicable to both.
The closer.
Yeah, like Moreno's a better closer and he's a better goal-scoring finisher than Francois. But Francois does his job. And that was my takeaway from the game against Perth, where my judgment of Francois without watching a whole lot of him, was kind of like, he's a bit flimsy. He's just a bit lazy. He's a winger. He's a football winger. He's just a bit like, there's not much to him as far as, yeah, he dribbles and he might cross it every once in a while. But he's not that. He works hard. He's got the same skill set as Rogerson, but on the left side. And it's kind of like when Leka Halasima started for the Warriors at edge forward, and you saw his big moments that have made him such a headline player, or given him so much headlines. He went from doing that, coming off the bench, and then he's a starter where you just need to, as a starter, you just need to hum along. Like, as a bench impact player in the NRL, you need to spike for 10 minutes. You need to go just rev up for 10 minutes, rev up for 20 minutes, have a break, you might do it again. But when you're a starter, you need to just hum along at a decent, hum along at 7 out of 10. Repeat your efforts with and without the footy. And now I'm talking myself into it, where I think Francois, when he was coming off the bench, it was like, okay, I can see his skill set, I can see what he does. But then when he's starting, he also has the ability, like Leka Halasima, to just do your job over and over again and set those foundations for your team.
Yeah, I don't think I'm as convinced by him as you are, but I see the vision there where he, first of all, yeah, he's been much better as a starter than he was coming off the bench. I think he's just someone who maybe, it might be unfair to say it just took him time to pick up the pace, because frankly, he joined a team mid-season. Of course, it's going to be hard to get up to speed, whether you're coming off the bench or whatever. So, that's probably a relevant aspect to that. But he's a good dribbler. He does angle in a little bit too much. His shooting, I don't think, is particularly good, but his crossing is pretty useful. And he increasingly, as he's gotten more minutes, we're playing alongside these guys, I think he combines a lot better with his teammates now than he did before. I'm not sure if it's with Francis de Vries as much as he ought to, but that might be the next one that's coming. Then there's also maybe just a stylistic thing as well. Like, Gillian likes to sit in his little pockets, and he's going to look to come back and flip it back to Francis de Vries, whereas Moreno likes to drift around, and he'll drag defenders out and create space for de Vries to push even further forward. Francois maybe doesn't lose the defenders as easily as Moreno, but he is a good dribbler, as I say, and he made a lot of things happen in that game of the weekend. I think it's the best I've seen him play. There's no way he's better. He is better than Gillian and Randall and those guys, I think, is probably fair to say. Although he has a similar thing with Randall, with Gillian rather, where it's like, are you getting the end product on the end of the funky stuff? I'm not sure there was a whole, the goal he scored was his first goal, but it was a goal from a corner. It wasn't indicative of how we normally play. So it was a corner kick that floated in the far post. Probably not entirely what he was aiming for, but you take him however they come. But there's no way he's better than Nader Moreno. However, talking about finals footy here is what they're preparing for. And do you want 50 to 60 minutes of Moreno and then you bring on Francois to finish it? Or do you want it the other way around, where Moreno's on the pitch at the end as someone who is going to raise the levels, and you got a good defensive team that grows into games as they go along. You're really good at pouncing late. Nader Moreno in particular has scored a lot of goals off the bench this season. And you also know that there is a decent percentage chance that, obviously not in the first leg, it's not going to happen, but in the second leg, which will, I assume, be the home leg, you might go to extra time. If you go to extra time, there's another 30 minutes on top. So you're talking about a 120-minute game, whereas Moreno, if he comes on after 60 minutes, he might end up playing 60 minutes himself and potentially taking a penalty in a shootout if it comes to that. And I'd also rather have Moreno taking a penalty in the shootout if that's the situation that arises. So I think I think it's one of those ones where by picking the weaker player to play potentially more minutes as the starter, it maybe gives the team a better balance overall, and it keeps you having at least one super strike weapon on your bench, which is something I just think you need that in that situation. Whereas otherwise, you're bringing on maybe weaker players at that point, or changing the way you're playing. You don't get as much punch as you'd otherwise get, and I think Moreno as Mr. Super Sub is a pretty good balance to have in that scenario.